Hi, I'm Ajay. I'm a Microsoft Certified Solution Developer. Today we are going to talk about Angular NgRx. It'll be a talk through session. So let's get started. So first off, let's talk about what is NgRx. NgRx is a pattern for maintaining component state effectively, and it facilitates unidirectional data flow, which helps us in complex workflow application wherein we have multiple components interacting with each other, and it's becoming hard for us to know which component sending command or subscribing to what events. It will be really helpful in wherein we want to just send data unidirectionally. We'll see pictorial diagram of it. And in addition to that, it also helps us to enable clear and maintainable communication among components. As I already mentioned, let's say we have a complex application wherein we have 10 or 20 or maybe lots of complex components, and they want to interact with each other. Let's say we are doing some changes in one component, and we want to uh, emit this particular event or action to multiple components. It can become hard for us to debug the application when any state related bug gets reported. It will be really helpful. Or NgRx gives us a tooling support wherein we can easily debug the application, and we can time travel a bug. We can just play all these state related changes like a video, and we can see okay what happened after what event, so we can easily track down the bugs if they got introduced in our application. And it is inspired from a Redux pattern, which is also quite popular in React applications. So let's first understand what this Redux pattern is and what are the main components of this NgRx pattern or Redux pattern, so that we'll get a hang of it uh, in an excellent way. There are three components in Redux pattern. One is store, wherein we keep our application state. The kind of data that we want to serve to our components, we can store in we can keep that data into a store. You can consider it like a place where we can put all the application related data at one place. And then there is this reducer. Basically, a reducer listens to all the actions or all the events that could happen in our application, and it you know interact with store. It takes the current action which is happening in our application, and then it interacts with store, get the data from the store, and then put the latest data after applying all the required changes to that store. And there is this action is nothing, it's basically an event that could be triggered in our application, that our component can trigger, like on click, on change, any kind of event we can think them as an action. So there are three main components: store, reducer, and action. And of course, it goes without saying, fourth one is our component itself. Let's look them into a picture wherein we can easily understand how these three components along with our components interacts with each other. Let's say we have a component in our application. In that component, we can trigger a event like mouse click event, or maybe key press or key down event, or maybe mouse hover event. It could be anything in our application, in our component. Whenever that happens, we just need to dispatch an action. And action is like a object which can contain two kind of things. One is mandatory, which is type, what kind of action we are triggering. Like we can say it could be a string. We can state that in a string, like uh, you know button clicked. This could be an event name, like button clicked, keyboard clicked, or checkbox checked. So this kind of action, we just need to dispatch this action from that component instead of writing the code inside the component. We should avoid writing the code inside the component and updating the state, and we just need to dispatch an action, and then this action goes to reducer. And reducer is like a pure function which takes input, which listens to all the actions that are happening in our application, and then get the state from our store wherein we have kept our application data, our components data. It pulls the data from state, from store, and then figure out, okay, what kind of action we have triggered or what kind of action our component has triggered. Let's say we have some student data in our store and we have updated a student name by the dispatch method. So reducer can take input from store and then update data accordingly, according to our action that we triggered, and then it can again put that data into store. So in store we have got our updated data, and then what if our component want, if our component wants that latest data or updated data. In the next diagram, if I show you, yes, there is this selector. Component can listen to that store by subscribing to a selector, and whenever anything happens, whenever anything gets changed in store, it can easily be published to a component by selector. So when we talked about that, Redux pattern can help us to flow our data in unidirectional flow. And this is how, like, a component can only dispatch an action, then this action will go to reducer, and then reducer takes care of updating the state with the current state, and then according to action, what kind of action we raised or triggered, it will update the state in store, and then store again can publish this data to multiple components or all the components which are interested in knowing the current state of this particular event. And we have only shown one component. There can be 10 or 20 components. They just need to subscribe to this store by using selectors, and they can start listening to the state changes that are happening. And here you can see this is one directional flow, wherein if we were to manage our data by ourselves in any application, let's consider we have 10 components here, and one component try to send data to 10 components, or maybe 5 another component send data to another 5 components. It can be messy at time when lots of communication happening in multiple components. It will become hard. It sometimes becomes hard to know, okay, who is consuming from whom, okay, what components are interested to know data from other components. And let's say if we introduce a new component and we want to we won't let that component know about the other component state. So we just need to revisit all the components, and then we need to update the data in the already written methods or functions. But in that case, we just need to create a new component, and that component can start subscribing to the store by using selector. We do not need to touch any existing components in that way. Why NgRx? As we already talked about, let me give you some more examples. NgRx can be very helpful in those cases as well. Let's say we have created a component and we are pulling some data from the backend web API. So what we usually do in that case, we write our code inside NgOnInit method, wherein we make a request to the injected service. Let's say we have injected a HTTP service in our, or maybe any kind of services that we have created, that we might have created in our application, and we just pull data from the backend service inside NgOnInit method, right? And if we just go away for a second and then come back to that component again, we are just making another request to backend service, don't we? Yes, because there is no way to cache that data, or there is I don't know maybe we do not need to. I think we can do so, but in that case we need to come up with some custom code or custom strategy, wherein we can say, okay, if I'm going back from this component and coming again and again, going back and forth, I do not want to make another call to our backend API. But this can easily be achieved using NgRx, because we are pulling data or we are storing data in our store, and we can apply client-side caching in that store, because we are pulling data only once, and then we can serve the data as and when required in those components. First thing first. Secondly, as we already talked about, let's say we are adding 2 or 3 more components, and they are also interested in knowing what other components and how other components are doing. In that case, we need to revisit all the components in order to let other components know that, hey, I have changed my this is the checkbox that I have checked, and this is the event that is happening inside me. But in case of NgRx store, we can add as many components as we want, and we just need to subscribe to that store in order to pull the data for those specific events. And now third one is replay events. As we talked about, NgRx provides a great tooling support, wherein we can replay all the events that have happened in our application. Like playing a video, we just need to click a play button, and we can see, okay, what happened after what, and we can easily see, okay, this is how our state were changing over a period of time. So it can help us to debug or maybe hunt down a bug which might get introduced in our application. And then finally, as we have already talked about caching, we can apply client-side caching in NgRx store, and that way we do not need to make request again and again. So these are the benefits that we can get out of NgRx. Now let's talk about what are those cases where we should not consider using it in our application. Let's say we have got a small application wherein we have some handful of components. I think it's not worth doing it. Then we should just go the conventional approach, or the simple approach. And if our team is new, developers are not not familiar with some advanced concepts, so I think in that case we can also avoid it using it, because it obviously requires some more code in order to introduce NgRx in any project. Before using NgRx, it will be really helpful if all the developers are familiar with like RxJS concepts and observables. Also, it will be really helpful for them. And I guess these are the two things I would say. And if we are not if we have, let's say, more components, but there is no heavy communication in between them, then we can also avoid using this NgRx pattern. So that's all for this session. That's all I have for this session, and soon I will create another session wherein we will be implementing this NgRx patterns practically in an Angular project. So thank you all. Bye bye.